welcome.
Thank you.
So I promised that we were going to talk about worldwide technology, but first I want to go back to your pre-CEO life.
Oh, no.
Jim was a professional soccer player and played on the Olympics team in '84, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
And I bring this up because it's cool, but also because it made me wonder about how that experience, how working on a team at that incredibly high elite level made you think about building a company and building a company culture.
Well, it's a great question, so thanks. I still love the sport of soccer for just a number of different reasons. There's all kinds of great things that happened to me because of the game of soccer. I grew up in St. Louis. My dad was a bricklayer, so I didn't get to travel a lot going through my years in school and grade school and high school. So as playing soccer, I fell into the position of getting selected to play for the '84 Olympic team. It created an incredible opportunity. So not only as I grew up, I think I got a good understanding of what it really took to play on a team, but also to be team-oriented and the importance of really building a high-performance team. The other thing I would just say was it was such a great learning experience, and I just think that everything that we do, especially in today's world, is about learning. And I had the good fortune back then, and I won't go on too much, but such a great experience of really never getting out of St. Louis, where all of a sudden at the age of 19 or 20, all of a sudden I'm traveling all over the world. And I got to go around the world and see 25 different countries in almost 15 months. And even more than the game of soccer, I got to see how different people lived around the world. And you talk about inclusion and where we are today, just learning how fortunate people are in the US. We really don't understand that at times. And you go to other countries and you look at the way people are living. And I think even today as a leader, it's understanding and trying to put yourself in different positions. So just opening your eyes and being self-aware is very important. And then also just the game of soccer taught me so many things about being a team player. But also, I will have to say there's a number of, the CFO at Worldwide is ex-teammate of mine, and the president is. So there was a number one. Not that you have to be a soccer player to work at Worldwide Technology.
But maybe it helps.
But yes, if you've got the right values.
Okay. So, CEOs, obviously, they have many, many responsibilities. There's a lot of pressure on you, particularly to look at those business metrics, profit, growth, revenues. So given that level of pressure, what do you think realistically should be the CEO's role when it comes to setting culture? Something that feels a little softer.
Personally, I think it is absolutely the job of the CEO to set the culture. If the CEO doesn't set the culture will happen on its own, and you don't want to leave something that important up to chance. And I personally look at it to really drive a high-performance organization. It's at the highest level. It's about how do you manage and lead your financial performance, your strategic plan, your operation. But absolutely equally as important are the values and the culture of the organization. And I could almost debate that it's more important. So the people and culture, along with the strategy, if the CEO isn't behind the values and really living and breathing those values and making that culture come to life, I think that CEO is missing just an incredible opportunity to move the company forward.
And so can you give us an example of how you personally try to mirror the culture for your employees that you want to see?
I think just leading by example is so important. I would say another thing at really the highest level from a CEO and just the entire leadership organization, building a great place to work and a culture that really oozes of being a great place to work, it's not easy. It is not easy. And I think it is so important that the CEO and the executive team lead by example and demonstrate an authentic and really sincere, level of caring for your employees. I can't emphasize that enough because, and I can tell you, if your employees aren't your most important and your most valuable resource, and you don't think that, don't try to fake it because they will know if you're faking it. But I can tell you, if you truly believe your employees are the most valuable resource, which I do, and if you go back, and I don't think, I didn't graduate at the top of my class, and I will tell you about one thing, where do we invest? The largest investment we have in the company, by far, 80 cents of every dollar we spend goes into our employees. So where do you think we should spend all of our time? And it's on driving and developing our people, our employees, and our culture. It can have such a huge impact, and it needs to be led by the CEO, and it needs to be led by the executive management team.
And so you're a company that's growing incredibly quickly. I think you hired something like 500 people last year. Does that sound right?
It's a little more, but yes,
more?
yes.
More than that, okay.
But no, thank you.
So I'm curious to hear a little bit about how culture plays a role in your hiring process, because we know that when companies are growing very quickly, sometimes the culture can sort of get diluted.
No, absolutely. So I'm a big believer in culture, and I'll go back, Kristen, coming out of school and coming out of college, I really had no idea what culture meant. And I really had no idea the power of culture. And maybe from playing sports and understanding the power of teamwork and collaboration and really supporting each other. And I had two great parents that really embedded in me, work ethic and trust and honesty and loyalty. But when I come back and I look at where we are, we have evolved as an organization, as a company, so that when we were a smaller organization, it was something that we just had the right people and everybody kind of felt the type of behavior that was expected within the organization. It was just known. But as we continue to grow and we got bigger, we're hiring all these people. And last year, I think we hired about 600 people. This year, we're projected to hire over 700 new employees. And I think they were mentioning it earlier today in some of the CEOs up here. You need to build a process when it gets to a certain size. And there needs to be a process that you train your managers and leaders in regards to how you're onboarding employees. And we have created, along with our integrated management and leadership structure, to train our managers and leaders. But also through that process, we have what we call our employee development matrix and our employee performance matrix. And literally, it's on one axis. We look at how do we hire employees that fit whatever skill set, if you're a software developer, an engineer, a salesperson. But on the other axis, we map those individuals and we onboard and interview those individuals against our values. And we want to make sure that those individuals that we're bringing on not only fit the job requirements, but fit the axis. It's even more important that they understand our values and our behaviors. And I can tell you we've gotten much, much better. The discipline and rigor that we have in place in regards to how we use that process to onboard the right people and to make sure for our own personal benefit as an organization, but also for those individuals. And I would look at, you will make mistakes. We have made mistakes, but we use that same tool also to help develop and grow our managers, our leaders, and our employees. But at the same time, we also use that same tool to coach out individuals that slid through, that maybe we didn't do as good of a job as we needed, that don't fit the behaviors of the organization. And I would add one other thing to that. And I think it is so important to an organization, and it was mentioned through some of the other discussions earlier today with some of the other CEOs. If you have an employee that is a top performer and an overachiever, but they don't live and breathe your values and your behaviors, you need to coach them up, at least my belief. You need to coach them up or coach them out. And I have yet to see an overachiever, a salesperson that was doing 150%, 200% of quota, that didn't fit the values and was literally disrespectful to people, but felt that because I overachieve, I can behave any way I want to. when you remove that individual, the rest of the team moves up in such a significant way, and it has such a positive impact. So it's hard sometimes for managers and leaders to bite that bullet and to actually say, I've got to remove that individual, but I have yet to see in my years of managing and leading people in any area of the business, when we remove that individual, it had always improved the organization. And when you leave that individual, it becomes so destructive, and a lot of times you don't even know the negative impact it's having throughout your organization.
I mean, I think one of the reasons that can be such a difficult thing for companies to follow through on is because we know that there is a war for talent right now, and particularly in technology.
Yes.
And I'm curious, here we are in California, in San Francisco, right down the road from Silicon Valley, which is sort of acknowledged as the epicenter of technology. Your company is not in California. You guys are in St. Louis. I imagine that must be challenging sometimes when it comes to getting the very best tech people. So how do you deal with that?
It is. Well, so first of all, we have branded ourselves as Silicon Valley in St. Louis.
Okay.
So and that actually isn't a joke. So it'll be, I was a marketing major, and we're not a very good marketing company. No, I don't want to say that because that's a shot against our marketing team, and they're actually very, very good.
Is there anyone here from the marketing team? They're really mad right now.
So anyway, to your point, I think actually it plays to our advantage a bit, because even being out here in the Valley, the competition is at such incredible fever pitch, I think, of employees looking at different organizations. So, but I look at regardless of where you are, and this is something that I have learned over time, that being a great place to work and being recognized by Fortune magazine and Great Places to Work has had an incredible impact on worldwide technology. A couple of different things. First of all, our employees take incredible pride in this recognition. And I want to, again, recognize all the different companies that are here. I mean, it's been great to mingle with some of the different companies and just hear how the different companies operate. So it is great recognition to be here, and congratulations to all the companies out there. I do want to say something else and come back, and congratulations to all the women leaders last night that were recognized. That was pretty awesome, and a special recognition to Ann Marr, my VP of HR. So congratulations to all of you. I do want to say that it really is being a great place to work, or being recognized as a great place to work, has been incredibly impactful to us in regards to recruiting and bringing on some of the best people in the United States and around the world. We have, an event we were recognized in London, and our employees, again, I'm being redundant, but take great pride in that recognition. Mm-hmm. And other employees that we're looking to bring on and recruit as we continue to grow, they pay attention to that. They pay attention to Great Place to Work. They pay attention to Glassdoor. So I think it's very important, and I think you need to do it for the right reason, because if you do create a great place to work and you treat your employees right and you really care about them, it's amazing what they will do for your company.
You mentioned Glassdoor, and I know when we were talking before, you mentioned that it can be scary for companies to engage with those outside platforms. You have no control over the reviews on them, but you found it to be very powerful to consider those kind of results.
It is. I personally, I think we've had this discussion actually at the board level at Worldwide, and and I think there's some organizations you can either choose to embrace what's going on in the world today, and I believe what's going on is the world is just becoming a lot more transparent. So because of social media and different platforms, if you think it's just within your company that input is coming in, that is not the case. So I think you need to lean in, and you need to embrace this input. And again, you may get some irrational input that's negative on the company or rationally great on the company. You got to sort through that. But again, input is good. And I think if you embrace that and you take that in, you will be a better company and you will be a better leader, and your employees will really appreciate that. So we have really leaned into that and promoted to our employees, whether it's through Great Places to Work surveys that we have, whether it's through Glassdoor, whether it's going to your manager, your leader, or HR, or any mechanism that's out there. We want your input because we feel your input will help us make better decisions.
So you have been, your company's been acknowledged as a great place to work, and you obviously care a lot about culture and focus on that, but no company is perfect. Is there a part of your company culture that you're still sort of tinkering with, or a place where you'd like to see some improvements?
Absolutely. There's a number of areas of the business that we continue to push. I would say one, culture is an area that we continue to push to figure out how do we create better platforms to get input, real-time input from our employees. So that is one thing that is very active as we speak, because I think culture, one, you can look at it across the board and get certain input, but my belief is that you have certain areas of the business that continue to grow, and you may have pockets that there may be some dysfunction for whatever reason. Maybe you're growing so fast, maybe you started a new line of business, maybe you're in a new part of the country or the world, and you need to have the ability to dip into that area. So I think you need to train your managers and leaders to poke and prod and to always be looking for those things, but also ways that you can create a programmatic structure to get that input is very important.
Okay. At the beginning of this section, we heard a little bit about the people and great places to work, companies that care list. I know your company is on that list, and that you've had some pretty great results with getting your employees involved in the community. So, from a skeptic's point of view, I think you might say, you're a technology company, why are you spending time on something like volunteerism? So what would you say to someone who said that?
So there's just been so much that I have learned, and I know that there's so much more I'll continue to learn. But I think some of the other leaders that were up talked about the power of, I would say, contagious behavior. And when I look at it worldwide, we have looked at employee engagement. I'm sure a lot of you have looked at different employee engagement polls in the past. And if you look at in the US, I think Gallup had the poll where 30% of employees are engaged, about 50% of employees are not engaged, and about 20% are actively disengaged, that really don't like your company, and they don't do things to positively impact your company. That 50% kind of comes in and goes through the motions. Not bad people, but they're not overly energized. And then you have, the top 30% that really are highly engaged. So my view is, how do you create, we should all be focused on driving 100% engagement, and employees that really feel the connection with your mission and your vision, because those are also the employees that I have seen that are engaged. When you have highly engaged and highly inspired employees, they connect and they highly engage and inspire your customers, your partners, and your community. And what we have seen is this contagion that happens when you have employees that do good things in their community, wherever your community is, and you promote that because you do care about your community. That becomes a multiplier effect, and you see the good behavior with your employees, it feeds on each other, and then you see your employees that do good things that positively impact and give back to the community, and other ones start feeding on that. So I think the power of behavior, the positive behavior, and positive behavior that not only impacts your specific company, but impacts your community, is incredibly powerful.
I have, when I was speaking with Jennifer and Ariana, we were talking about sort of like the downside of technology on our work lives to some extent. But there are also many upsides.
Yep.
I noticed that I think about 90% of your employees sometimes telecommute, for instance, and that's a lot. So as a technology company, how do you think about technology as making your company someplace people are excited to work?
Yeah, I think technology, just like culture, technology isn't the end all. Technology is something we have to figure out. There's kind of the art and science, I think, of leveraging technology to do great things. But I also think that's where it's kind of figuring out how do you use technology as an enabler for your business and to grow it, and to figure out, how you digitize your business as the world becomes, a more digital workplace. But at the same time, you got to watch and see what's that impact having on your employees. And they talked a little bit about burnout, and you're always on. So I think as leaders, we've got to be paying very close attention to that, and to make sure that there is a work-life balance. But it's a very competitive world, and I think this is something that we collectively as leaders are just going to have to pay very close attention to, and figure out what the right mix is, and how do you leverage technology in the right way, but don't let technology completely control and dictate what you're doing.
All right, it's an ongoing conversation. Thank you so much, Jim.
Well, thank you. My pleasure.